Hi there. I have been asked to explain a little bit more concisely what is going on with applicant traffic tracking software, LLMs, and learning disabled individuals. So the topic is fantastically complicated, but there is something that's quite understandable about it. So step one, first thing to say is that this isn't a technical problem. This is a philosophical problem. This is a legal problem. This is a cultural problem. This is something that is understandable in those realms entirely. We don't need to understand the technicals of it to really begin to grasp this subject. Now, there is a key technical aspect because people are saying like, oh, they kind of think that this might be kind of a blip whereby new AI-powered, I mean, AI is kind of a dubious term, but large language model powered applicant tracking software and HR software and human resources software is being rolled out and why that might affect the disabled communities. So the first thing to know is that right now, the general consensus is that an LLM, or like ChatGPT 2 and less, are fairly understandable, where you can track back and look and see, oh, you know, this program did something for this reason. And if you had something that was weaker than that, it's possible that you could create something that's safe and that wouldn't discriminate against disabled job applicants, disabled workers who are looking for a promotion, disabled recruiters, disabled individuals who are trying to seek health insurance, disabled individuals who are applying for the military or are applying for a college program or recruitment of any kind. You know, you could with a weak and simple enough LLM, you would be able to safeguard it. The thing is that nobody's interested in using those kinds of LLMs, the type of LLMs that where people are really going, wow, we want to integrate this into applicant tracking software, ATS software, is ChatGPT 3 and up. And the current consensus is that it's very difficult to near impossible to determine internal intentionality behind what that kind of software is doing. What does the internal intentionality mean? It means it's hard to look at that tracking software and be like, oh, are you for sure not discriminating against disabled individuals and otherwise? So yeah, disability discrimination is discriminated in a different way because disabilities can be wrongly or rightly, depending how you look at it, but mostly wrongly, used as a reason to not employ someone for a job, particularly learning disabilities. Particularly learning disabilities for people who are applying for more high-end things, like if you like trying to become a lawyer or a doctor or a dentist or a career kind of job, right? And that's where it gets very complicated. You're talking about LLMs that are also optimizing, so they could be doing things like what are LLMs? So large language models, which are this new kind of AI like ChatGPT 4 and all this stuff by OpenAI. They're integrating that into tracking software. So that part of it could be doing stuff like discriminating, creating unethical optimization, all this kind of stuff. And it would be extremely hard to like realize it was doing it from an outside perspective. The only way to really test this stuff is through continuous, constant impact assessment, and that would involve just like surveys and stuff that just aren't done. We don't even do that now, right? We should be doing it. We should be assessing employment software and ATS and seeing if it's and looking into discrimination, which we do know exists. And we look at the big numbers. That's like, oh, obviously, this community is being discriminated against, particularly disabled community members. And then it gets into a whole complicated question of abilities and like, is it legitimate to discriminate against someone with this kind of disability, all this stuff. But we know in the bigger picture, if you look at the numbers, absolutely it's happening, right? The disconnect happens when you go like, okay, let's apply sensical policies where we're not going to discriminate against disabled people to small corporations, small companies, and just the everyday. And that's where there's a big disconnect. And we all know about that disconnect. What I'm saying is that with this new technology that's coming out, I mean like right now, that disconnect's about to get worse, harder to detect as well, because this LLMs could be making unethical optimizations. What I mean by unethical optimizations is discrimination, the same thing. So discrimination without us knowing, and being almost impossible to determine that it's doing it, and possibly even hard for us to prove that it's doing it without being asked to do it. So it might just do it, and the HR person or whoever's doing the hiring may not even know it's happening. And you may think that's an easy thing to determine. You'd be like, well, why don't we just get even more advanced AI to look at it and make sure it's not discriminating against? And the problem with that is that's one completely untested thing to do. We'd have to also pair that with constant assessment and under different cultural settings, just like every setting around the world, employment-wise. So we have to test that with using just like sociological investigations, economic investigations that just don't happen very often anyways, and would be extremely hard to do. But, it'd be worth it. I mean, we should do that. But two is you're kind of opening up actually a really big question when you ask that. You say, okay, we need a more advanced AI to understand this AI and to make sure that that this lesser AI is acting ethically. But what does that even look like? And are you able to trust that more advanced AI to analyze the less advanced AI? I don't think we're there yet. These kinds of tools are really hard to create, and they don't exist. And we don't have a surefire thing where it's like, okay, if this AI is, let's say, has twice as many layers as the next one, then it's able to analyze everything that AI is doing under ethical guidelines to make sure it's following them and not discriminatory. We don't have that technology. We don't know how much that would be. So would it be 2 times as much more powerful? Would it be x to the power of 2 more powerful? Would it be x to the power of 8 more powerful? We don't understand that number, and we have no reason to believe that it's a consistent variable. Where it's like we could say, if an AI is always twice as powerful as ChatGPT 3, and we're using ChatGPT 3, we can always have tabs on it and make sure that it's falling within ethical guidelines for hiring. We don't know what that is. We absolutely do not, and it is an incredibly unsettled question. It's a question that everyone's blowing past entirely, and something that we really need to think about. And it really, really matters because HR software overall, like if you think about it, kind of runs our society in a huge regard. It's like who gets jobs, who doesn't get jobs, who gets job interviews, who gets employed, who gets hired, who gets elected. It's incredibly important stuff. And the fact that this technology is sort of being rolled out, because it's something to be very worried about. Now you'd be like, well, why are they rolling it out? Well, it's because it is seemingly very effective, and it is saving them a lot of money, and there's a huge financial incentive to roll this stuff out. It's one of the areas in which AI is likely to make a lot of money, is taking over the human resources world. So this is this basic of it, which is that the technology to monitor this technology does not exist at this time, and ethically, it wouldn't be something where you'd be like, oh, we've solved it. We don't know the general principles of large language models and multimodality, and in terms of human anthropology and stuff. Like we don't understand how this will actually affect human society. Like we might get to a point where we can in a computer science formal way be like, okay, this LLM is 4 times more powerful than that LLM. It's always able to track the less powerful LLM to 99.999 degree or something like that. We might get to that in computer science, but we don't know if that even translates in the real world. And so this technology is being released. It's coming. There's no stopping it. And so this is why we need to just understand you don't need to have like a background in computer science, just understand the ethical dilemmas here, the legal dilemmas. And really, I mean, if this is coming out and there's no stopping it, we need to be studying it for one. We need to find new ways of studying it. We might even need to create a new field of like AI, anthropological economics or something like that, just to study this one aspect, which doesn't exist, right? So I think that this is what I'm talking about. This is why I'm bringing this up, and why I've been talking about it on the internet with a lot of different people. I've been talking to people in real life and having a lot of conversations. And I think that just understanding this key technical detail, which is to do with the problem of LLM, like inter AI analysis or analyzing one AI that analyzes another AI for alignment, for ethical alignment. That just understanding how difficult that problem is, and kind of that it's almost there is technical aspects and mathematical ways we can approach this, but there is a whole social impact way in which we can approach this, and it is understandable, and so that we should be part of the conversation, even if we don't have a PhD in computer science or a AR researcher. Everyone should be involved in this conversation, and we need to have sensible policies in place that don't necessarily restrict the technology, but also don't put the technology in a position where it's going to hurt people, right? And I think that's what's actually happening at incredible speed, because there's economic incentive to do that. So, anyways, that's the whole thing. I just wanted to try and boil it down. I know this is still a very long video. There's actually just so much to talk about. I know people always bring up questions. What about this? What about this? It's just a fantastically complicated topic. But just remember that one aspect of it, which is we do not have the technology that's proven to keep us safe from discrimination, from basically all applicant tracking software is doing this, right? So we just assume that it's all basically anything that would call itself an applicant tracking software that is updated this year, I would just assume has some level of LLM integration, even if it's just LLMs being used to update it. That can influence it. So it doesn't even need to have an LLM integrated into it. It could just be have an LLM was used to update it. Still enough of an influence. So yeah, anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Check out www.dyslexics.help, and let's keep this conversation going.